welcome back to R.M.Aviation. For a lot of you may know, it has been a while. I've taken personal time just to regain some thoughts and stuff, and just have a break, So yeah, I'm back now. I'm going to get back to posting. Soon I will be having another break again because I've got exams, but other than that, I'm going to stick to posting as much as possible. So let's get started today. So for today, we're going to be discussing Qantas's decision regarding the Boeing 777 and breaking it down into historical, strategic, operational, and market dynamics. Now, one of the things that I found quite interesting about this was that Qantas put a lot of money into the development of it. So let's get started. What was Qantas's role in the design of the 777? Well, Qantas was one of the several major global carriers alongside United, British Airways, All Nippon Airways, and others that provided input into the early stages of the Boeing 777's design in the late 1980s and early 1990s. Qantas's participation centered around operational requirements. Qantas wanted a long-range, efficient aircraft that could serve its Trans-Pacific and Europe routes. It wanted a cabin configuration input, so like other airlines, Qantas helped shape the interior design and seating configuration and its cargo capacity needs. And the cockpits and system designs. The pilots and engineers contributed feedback on the flight deck, ergonomics, and avionics. Despite the early involvement and investment, Qantas chose never to place an order for the 777, a rare example of an airline helping to shape an aircraft but ultimately never flew it. Strategic fleet planning and simplification over the diversity. So Qantas had historically emphasised fleet commonality. As a central part of its strategy, this approach reduces the cost in several areas. Training, including pilots, engineers, cabin crew, can be trained on fewer aircraft types. Maintenance, fewer aircraft types means less need for diverse spare parts and maintenance procedures. And operational flexibility. Operational flexibility means that you can swap out any aircraft at any time, and optimizing schedules becomes easier. At the time Boeing was developing the 777, Qantas had already heavily invested in the Boeing 747 for long-haul routes, and the Boeing 767 for medium-haul international routes. When Airbus introduced the A380 with far greater capacity and newer technology for long-haul routes, Qantas saw it as the next best step for the high-density international travel, example to London and Los Angeles. The result of this was that the 777 was seen as redundant between the 767 and the 747, and later outclassed in Qantas' view by the A380. Now, from a financial, environment, and a competitive pressures perspective, Qantas' international operations were under pressure in the early 2000s due to rising fuel cost, increased competition from the Middle Eastern carriers like Emirates, the global aviation downturn post 9/11, and the SARS outbreak, which further hit international traffic. During the period, Qantas had to be careful about large capital expenditures. Airbus offered a very attractive financial terms for the A380, including favourable leasing and purchase agreements, which helped tip the scales against the Boeing 777. Now we know that, let's look at the regulatory constraints and the ETOPS barriers. Now, for those of you who don't know what ETOPS is a certification that is required by airline manufacturers, and ETOPS stands for Extended Range Twin Engine Option Performance Standards. Now, in the 1990s, the Australian Civil Aviation Safety Authority, or CASA, limited ETOPS operations to 180 minutes. Many of Qantas's routes over the Pacific or Indian Ocean required ETOPS of 207 or 240, which at the time was either unavailable or hard to get for early 777s. This made the 777 less practical for Qantas, while the 747, a quadjet, had no such restrictions. The impact of this: even though the 777 was technologically capable, the regulatory climate at the time made it even riskier and less viable option for the long-haul over-ocean flights. Now, the Boeing miscalculation. From Boeing's perspective, Qantas was a natural 777 customer, long-haul network, premium product focus, and a history as a Boeing customer. But Boeing underestimated Qantas's preference for large aircraft and overestimated the 777's appeal as a replacement for the 747. Now, additionally, Qantas later moved to the 787 Dreamliner, a smaller, more fuel-efficient long-range aircraft reflected a pivot in strategy, bypassing the 777 entirely. Now, the next thing I want to question, and that is, was this a missed opportunity or was it a smart strategy? Interestingly enough, Qantas still to this day does not operate or have any orders for the 777, while its low-cost subsidy Jetstar never touched it either. In hindsight, many aviation analysts believe that Qantas could have benefited from the 777-200 long range for the ultra-long routes like Sydney to Dallas, or the 777-300ER, which outperformed the A340 and A330 in many metrics. However, the airline stuck with the A330 for medium haul, the A380 for a flagship long haul, and then transitioned to the Dreamliner for more efficient, thinner long-range routes, like the direct Perth to London flights. In conclusion, a unique path in airline strategy. Qantas' decision not to buy the Boeing 777, despite co-developing it, highlights how operational environments, regulatory limitations, cost structure, and strategic vision all play into fleet acquisition choices. Now, while the Boeing 777 became one of the most successful wide-body aircraft in aviation history, with over 1,700 deliveries, Qantas charted a different path. While many may have missed out on the opportunity on the 777's prime years, it stayed aligned with its goals of efficiency, premium service, and route flexibility. Thank you for tuning into R.M.Aviation today. We will see you for the next episode, and please leave a comment on what you think about the Qantas history with the Boeing 777. Personally, I think they maybe could have ordered it, but we don't know. So it hasn't happened, and who knows, it could happen yet with the Boeing 777X. But from what it looks like, it probably won't happen. So if you'd like to like, subscribe, and tune in for tomorrow's episode, I would love to hear your opinion. Thank you.